Hello, fourth graders. So for math today, you're going to need your pencil, your notebook pages that we worked with yesterday on measuring protractors, a protractor, and then your math book. To get started, you're going to need this page and your protractor. And just try to remember, how do you measure angles? Okay, how would you set up your protractor? So remember, we talked about lining our circle up with where our rays meet. And then we figure out which one is the bottom ray. And we make sure our line, that black line, is lined up on that bottom ray. And our point is as close to that, it's centered on the meeting point. Then we read it depending on which way it opens. From the edge of our ray to the next ray. How far is it between those points? So we did a little bit of practice first. So we ripped out page 785 because in our book it was hard to measure with the spine. So we ripped out this 785. And then we worked on solving just like the bottom portion. Practice measuring your angles. Okay? So go ahead and pause the video while you rip out page 785 and practice using your protractor to measure. Remember, think through. We want to extend the top ray. And then we're using in our head to think through, is it acute or obtuse? To help us know which number makes more sense when we're reading it too. So pause the video while you do those problems. All right, let's take a look at those answers. And we talked about in class, we're not perfect. We make mistakes, but we want to get really, really, really close. So if you're within like 3 degrees on either side, I would count them, okay? So number 5, that angle measures 60 degrees. You might have gotten anywhere from like 57 to 63, somewhere between there. If you got 64 or more, it's a little bit too off. And if you got less than 57, it's too off too. You want to have it within that certain window. Number 6, we measure it. You might have needed to rotate your page a little bit so you could measure this one. Is 90 degrees. We can also tell because it has a box in the corner. That helps us know. But if it didn't have this box, we shouldn't just guess that it's 90 degrees. We want to measure to make sure. 7 is 30 degrees. You might have gotten anywhere from 27 to 33, give or take 3 degrees. Number 8 was an obtuse angle, and it's 120. So we're picturing it like our L would be here. It opens up farther. So obtuse, anything from like 117 to 123. Number 9 should be 150. So you might have gotten 147-ish all the way up to 153. 10 is also a 90 degree, a right angle. 11 is 2. It kind of looks obtuse at first, doesn't it? But if we imagine we tilt our head, oh yeah, it is a right angle. 180 degrees for number 12, also known as a straight angle or a line too. And 13 is acute, and it points the opposite way than all of these. So we would measure this one as reading the outside numbers, and this one should be around 30 degrees. Awesome. All right, friends. Well, the next thing we did was we used our copy of our worksheet where it said the sketching angles, which you had attached on Google Classroom. So I don't have a big paper for that for me to write on. So I just have these angles, the measurements written down. But it's got kind of the same idea of spaces, okay? So our directions for this are written on the top of your page. There's 3 steps for sketching angles. The first step is to use the straight edge of your protractor to draw your first ray. So I find kind of towards the bottom, left center-ish of my box. I don't want to do it too close to the edge. It's kind of in the middle. I'm going to use just the ruler part. So I'm going to trace down here. I'm going to do it just from the middle point out. So about 2 inches on mine. Then I make this a ray. So I draw my arrow and my point. That's step number 1. Number 2, I line up my protractor on the first ray and draw a mark at the measure that it wants me to, the measure given. So I line it up like I would to measure. I make sure that's centered and my black line is as straight across as I can make it. Now, I know I'm measuring 68 degrees, and I know my angle points to the right. So I want to go up until I get to 68. Well, here's 60, 65, 66, 67, 68 is closer to that 70, okay? Kind of between 75 and 80, right? So I made that point. That is step 2. Step 3, I'm going to use that straight edge to connect my points and make it another ray. So I want to be very mindful when I'm doing this. I want my points to be lined up. See how they're both in line with that ruler? It's not like this, and it's not like that. I need them in a straight line from point to point. Then I draw from my one point all the way through my other one. And I draw the arrow to make it a ray. Now, just to double check, I might want to measure it. So I line this up, and it should measure right at about 68 degrees. And mine is really, really close. Perfect. Let's try one more together. This time we're going to do what kind of angle would 113 degrees be, do you think? This time we're doing an obtuse angle, so we know it's going to be nice and wide. I go back to that first step. I can look back at my directions. Oh yeah, I need to draw my first ray. So I'm going to draw kind of in the middle-ish of my box. Draw my ray. All right, I have my ray. Now I line it up, and I need to find where that point would be. Make sure you're lined up right on that ray you drew. Now I'm doing 113 degrees. So I'd want to open it up. Well, there's 110. 115 would be over here. So I want to go back 2 ticks. Because I know 13 is 2 less than 15. And there's my mark. It's really tiny. It doesn't need to be super big. Now I connect my points, making sure that they both line up. I go through my point and past it a bit and draw my ray. And if I measure, just to double check, it is 10, 11. Mine's at 12, but remember, it's within that reason of air, okay? That's okay if we're like 1 degree off. That is really, really good. We're getting it as close as we can. I want you to try these 4 and pause the video and unpause when you're ready to see what they should look like. All right, well, we know 25 degrees is acute. So it should look something like this, nice and small. 90 degrees should be like the letter L, but we want to measure it to make sure we don't just freehand. We use our tools to make it as straight as we can. 90. And we talked about in class, you might add that box in there to tell you this is 90 degrees. What kind of angle should 87 degrees be? It should be an acute one, but it should almost kind of look like, what other kind of angle? It should kind of look like a right angle because it's really close to 90. 90, 89, 88, 87. And when we get it drawn out, ooh, that was squeaky. That one is, but this is still an acute angle. Now our last one is really wide, right? So it's an obtuse angle. So when we figure it out, it should be really, really wide. All the way over to 165. Connect them. And that is our obtuse 165 degree angle. So now we know how to sketch out angles. And that is all we did in class today. We practiced measuring and sketching out. We will do more practice with this at another time. Over distance learning, we're going to do some other things with angles that we don't need our protractors for. So I will talk to you soon, 4th grade friends. Bye.